Today is June 21st, 2022, and this is Sandra Lafky Carlson here in the Tualatin Heritage Center with Ross Baker, who is going to help me record an interview with Ed Casey. And thank you, Ed, for coming to do this for us. And this interview will be put in the archives of the Tualatin Historical Society. So, Ed, would you maybe start out by telling us where you were born and where you grew up?
Okay. I was born in Portland, 1945. Lived in West Slope, which was off of Canyon Road, until I was 10 years old. Went to Country Gable day school, which is went to Catlin Gable. After that, we moved to Southwest Portland between Hoyt Arboretum, Washington Park, and the new zoo. So we're surrounded by trees and such. Grew up there until I got married. Went to grade school, St. Thomas More, which is up on Council Crest in Portland. Went to Jesuit High School and University of Portland. I started in engineering and transferred to the School of Business and got a degree in industrial management, 1969. So that's, well, I married a beautiful young lady that I met at Portland U. We got married just after I graduated, Joanne. First job, do you want me to go into?
Sure.
Okay, first job was with First National Bank of Oregon, which has long since been taken up by other banks. Started as a management trainee, went to loan officer, credit analyst, consumer branch manager. First year I was loaned out as United Good Neighbors loaned executive. So I had to go beg for money for United Good Neighbors for about a month and a half. That was quite something. I left the bank in 1976 and joined Art Lutz and Company Realtors, which had a branch here in Tualatin. Sold homes in Tualatin and surrounding areas. And for a while, I was guaranteed sales manager, which means I had to go out and look at houses. And if we thought we could sell it, we'd give them 90 days. If we didn't sell it in 90 days, we'd buy it. That worked great when the market was hot, but when it started tightening up, I got out of the market. It just wasn't profitable to be a realtor at the time.
Was that about the time that you moved to Tualatin, Joanne?
Well, let's see. I moved here in 1970, I believe. 70 or 71.
And why? Was it because of your job?
Well, no, we wanted to get a house. We've been living in apartments. And at that time we had a baby daughter. And so I was working in the First National Tower down Portland. And I went up to the real estate division and talked to an appraiser. And I said, well, if you were to buy a house, where would you buy it? You know, I grew up in Southwest Portland, someplace Southwest Portland. He says, Tualatin. Didn't know much about Tualatin, very little. So about 2 days later, my wife was teaching, grade school teacher. And when school was done and I was off work, we drove to Tualatin and went out to Apache Bluff. They had an open house. We loved it. And 2 days later, we bought it. So it was a quick turn of events.
And you're still here. You lived.
Not in that house, but we're in our third house now. Yes. That one right at the end of Shasta Trail, and Art Martinezzi's field with cows was next to us, and it's now Christmas trees. So we were right there, and Dorothy Carson's barn was across the street. So a lot of history in where we ended up.
And now your family, was it your father or your grandfather had a business in Portland?
My grandfather started Commercial Ironworks, and he passed away in 1938, driving back from Seaside. Well, the war was starting, and Commercial Ironworks was transitioning from just a ironworks into repairing and building ships. They ended up building over 250 naval warships under the Ross Island Bridge. They had, and my uncle, the oldest brother, was president of the company. My dad was vice president. And basically, my dad, from all I've been told, my dad ran the company. My uncle would hobnob with all the admirals and politicians and such, getting money and such. And my dad was in charge of personnel and operations. They had anywhere from 6,000 to 20,000 employees.
Oh,
They were going 24/7, 365, building ships.
and did you ever work there?
I was born in 1945 in September, so the war ended a few months before that, when Japan surrendered. So I never got down there to see that, because I was just a baby, and my dad didn't take me to his office. His office is still there, right at the base of the
bridge?
no, I call it the flying beer can, the tram. The tram from OHSU comes right down and is about 100 yards from where my dad's office was. So, but they sold that business because construction came to a halt, and there was so many ships out there. Zidell bought it, and they ended up using that to dismantle ships. It was they were breaking them apart there, and for the steel. Let's see.
So you were out in Tualatin, and you.
No, at that time I lived out in West Slope.
Oh.
And then, well, let's see, first 10 years in West Slope, and then up in the West Hills until I got married. And then lived in a few apartments when I was married, and moved to Tualatin. So most of my life has been out here, close to 50 years here in Tualatin.
Oh my.
Yeah.
You've seen a lot of changes.
Oh, yes, there were no stop. Well, you would remember this too. No traffic signals, just stop signs. I think there were 976 people in town when we moved. There was a little sign. I should have taken a picture, but that number just sticks in my mind.
So you left the real estate business?
After I did, I left the real estate business. And I said, well, what am I going to do? And a new bank was opening. It was called Bank of Oregon, headquartered in Woodburn. And they built the building on Boones Ferry Rd, where Key Bank is now. And that was our branch office. I was there for about 2-3 years, and I remember why I had quit First National to start with. Didn't like banking all that well, so I moved on, looked for something to start. And I had a good friend that wanted to build a car wash. So he and I drove around looking at car washes. He said, well, we're going to build an auto mall where there's different things going on, and we need a quick loop. Why don't you start a quick loop? I said, what's that? So we went over to I think a Jiffy Lube in Milwaukee, and went through that, got the oil change. That's kind of neat. And it just progressed from that. About 3 months later, I was talking to Pennzoil, and they said, well, we have a place we can train you. We'll send you. You just go to Pittsburgh, Oil City, and we have a class, and we'll finance all your equipment and give you a list of all the things you need. And so I'm off and running. And so we built the oilery, and I can't remember the exact day we opened it, but it's still standing. So I guess we did pretty good.
Is that right?
Right by the railroad tracks, yes. And the Katy Car Wash. Well, the Katy Car Wash was Rick Stebner's car wash. He opened that. Actually, I financed it when I was at the bank. And he's since moved on to Arizona, but yeah, I did a lot of work. I changed a lot of oil. I got dirty myself, not too much, but had a lot of employees. One of my first employees now runs Clark Lumber. Dave, I can't think his last name. It just popped in my mind, but so whenever I need lumber or anything like that, I go down to the new Clark Lumber.
Where is the new one now? Is it on Tualatin Sherwood Road?
No, it's on
the extension. The
yeah,
24th Street extension out in the
yeah. I can't.
the new
Tonkin Road.
Basalt Creek area.
Yeah, Tonkin Road. It's on Tonkin Road.
Mhm.
When you come down Graham's Ferry,
Mhm.
the first turn is Tonkin,
Okay,
and he's off of that.
okay.
Yeah, I grew up with Clark Lumber. I like to do a lot of things, so I was in there a lot, and Dave was working there. He actually worked for me, and then he went to work for Harvey Clark, and
Mhm.
and then after it burned down, he scrambled with the family, the Clark family, and they opened a new place, which is sort of hidden, but it's just unbelievably well stocked and great place. Wish it were back in closer to town.
Oh,
But so let's see. I had the Quick Lube in the Boones Ferry Auto Mall in Tualatin. Opened another one in Aloha a few days later. In 1999, I sold out to Jiffy Lube. My corporate motto was changes for success, which included my employees, my customers, their cars, their attitudes towards people working on cars in general. I lived that model for many years, and I still relate to it now. I have twin granddaughters, 9-year-old granddaughters, and I sort of, get them with, well, how are you gonna do this better? How are you gonna make a change for success? And they kind of look at me, and so I'm trying to keep that rolling. Yeah.
And so did you retire then?
Well, sort of. I
Are you
retired
retired?
from working for someone else or for myself, and since then I've been busier than ever before. I look back, and I was, in retrospect, I was looking back, and my civic life is probably based from my parents. My dad was very involved in Portland during the war. They built ships in downtown Portland. Let's see, after the war was over, he started a road construction company, and in high school, I did some work out on the job with that. But he was very involved elsewhere. He was a founding member of the University of Portland Board of Trustees, which ran the operation. He served for many years. He also on the board of St. Mary's Boys Home in Beaverton,
Mhm.
and the Portland Rose Festival. He was involved in that for many years and was a two-time president of the Rose Festival.
Oh, really?
The only one to that date. So I was a young teen when that happened, like 13, 14. I was like a freshman, sophomore in high school. And I'd go to these Rose Festival things with him and hear all these beautiful young ladies, the court.
Mhm.
And I went to Jesuit High School, which is a boys school. So it was a little offsetting.
Distracting.
Yeah, it was distracting. Yes, very much. But
So you were inspired or motivated?
oh
by
yeah,
your dad's,
yeah.
volunteer work.
Yeah, he was always doing one thing or another, helping people out, you know. I've heard many stories of people that he helped set up in business. Our insurance agent, he gave him a desk and a file cabinet and a phone and a place to start selling insurance, and he became a very successful insurance man. And
So when
anyway,
you,
my mom too, during World War II, she was a nurse assistant in Portland, you know, with a little Red Cross cap and all that. And she volunteered at church and Cub Scouts, and she'd support every charity that sent her something, she'd send money to them. I mean, it was just you know, $5 or $10 or whatever, but she always supported everything. I see the mail that I get now, and I just can't believe all the people with their hands out. But she'd support them all. I guess I followed in their footsteps.
yes, and so where did you start in Tualatin in terms of your civic involvement?
I was at our house on Shasta Trail, and a fellow knocked on the door one day and said, "We're starting a group called the Jaycees here, and would you be interested in helping us start one in Tualatin?" And I said, "Sure, tell me about it." Well, young men 18 to 35, civic organization and such. So I said, "Sure, I'll do that." Well, I became the charter president. So I ran the thing, and I can't remember how old I was at the time, but Jaycees was for 18 to 35. And so we did all sorts of things. We did crawfish festival. We did Christmas trees. We did giving baskets to the needy. We'd get a hold of the school nurses and say, okay, which kids are not going to have a very happy Christmas? And we'd take food and quite often take the oldest kid in the family and go shopping with them and buy stuff for the rest of the kids, you know, so they'd have something under their tree, bring a tree. It was great fun. We did that for a number of years.
And then you were involved with the Lions.
Right. Well, after most of our Jaycees turned 35 or 36, and it was supposed to be for 18 to 35. So we looked around, and I think Larry McClure was in the Lions Club. He says, "Well, you guys need to come over and with us." So we, I think there were 8 or 10 of us that joined the Tualatin Lions Club, and I've been in that ever since. Been president a couple times, and
you mentioned one of the most rewarding experiences you had volunteering was with, I think it was with the Lions, and providing eye.
oh yes,
Checkups.
sight and hearing is the main focus of Lions International. Lions International is the largest civic group in the world, and has like 1.4 million members, thousands of clubs all over the world. And they were founded and given marching orders by, oh, I can't, the blind lady that, so
Helen Keller?
Helen Keller. She gave Lions their marching orders.
Oh,
So that's where the sight and hearing went. But the thing that I loved the most is that for many years, we did sight and hearing testing with all the grade school kids here in Tualatin.
hmm.
We had a van, we'd go to the schools, they put on the little ear things and that, and then we'd have them look at the, ease, which
Mhm.
ways and such.
Mhm.
And it's progressed from there. We're not doing the hearing as much now because there's other facilities that will do that. But we have a gadget that looks like a Polaroid camera, and the child sits on the other side of a table and they look into this thing and there's little flashing lights, little colored flashing lights. This takes a picture of the eye, of the inner eye,
Oh.
and can tell what the correction is. If they're 20/20, we had one that was 2200. 2100 is legally blind,
Mhm.
and they had no idea.
Oh.
And another thing that we do is we just did recently, we hand out American flags on a little base about this tall,
Mhm.
little wooden base that we make,
Mhm.
and we hand them out to all first graders.
Hmm.
We did that about 2 weeks ago. Well, a week ago, was just before Flag Day, just before they
Mhm.
ended their school year. And it is so much fun to see those little first graders,
Mhm.
waving their flags and sitting listening to our things. I have a shirt that I wear that's a flag, so I'm the flag guy. I come in and it's great fun. But we've been doing that, I don't know how many years. I'd say we've probably distributed 10,000-15,000 flags.
Oh.
And then other Lions clubs around the state, some do, some don't, but it's always fun to do that. And when my granddaughter, I have beautiful twin granddaughters that go to Byram School.
Oh, they're here.
Yes, well, they live in Sherwood, but our daughter went to Byram and she wanted them to go to school here, and we're close to the school, so we watch them after school.
Oh, nice.
But they didn't, they were online for their first grade. They were with COVID, so we couldn't hand them out. Well, when they got into second grade, we could go in and hand out the flags, so we got to hand out first and second grade. Now, remember giving them to my granddaughters. It was great fun.
You were also on the architectural review board here?
I was, yes.
And what does that mean? What did you do?
Well, at that time, it was a group of professionals. There was an architect, a landscape architect, a designer, a couple other people, and some just citizens. And we'd look at the plans, and we'd sit down with the city staff and the person that wanted to develop the property and make suggestions. And I thought it went quite well because we made a lot of changes that, I can't remember any in particular, but it would have been pretty bad if they built some of the buildings that they wanted to build. And then it's since progressed into the city reviews it. If the applicant who's going to build the building doesn't like what the city says, then they go to a board. So it's only if they don't agree with the city.
Okay. But they usually.
Yeah. the city, well, I won't get into that. I think the city needs some changes on architecture and planning and such. But that's a completely different story. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And the Wetlands Conservancy, you helped start that.
I did. Althea Pratt Room called me one day and I met her a couple times. And she says, we're gonna, we have some wetlands around here. We're trying to protect them. Would you be interested in joining us? We need a treasurer. At that time I was working at that Bank of Oregon.
Mhm.
Sure. So we had meetings in her house. She'd always have tea for us
Oh.
and such. And I don't know if you've been in the house, I'm
Yes,
sure.
uh-huh.
Well, Ross, you someday, hopefully you will. It's a beautiful
Yeah.
original
I've seen
house.
the video.
Yeah. But we had our meetings there and Jack and a lot of others, we all got involved and I stayed with it for 37 years.
Oh, you did.
Yeah, I finally, it had grown and it had moved downtown Portland for their headquarters. It was here in Tualatin for many years. For a number of years, it was over at the old Browns Ferry Park.
Okay.
House,
Oh,
the house there.
This is way in the back.
Yeah, yeah,
Park.
they were upstairs.
Yeah.
And so lots of,
I've been in it.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, it was, I think we did a lot of good. It's now known nationwide, if not worldwide.
Yeah, yeah, that's impressive.
Yeah,
That's wonderful. I was reading, I saw an old newspaper, a Tualatin paper from 1977 recently. And one of the articles mentioned that there was no library in Tualatin. I think there was a little house.
but actually there was a
Park.
bus. We had
Oh,
a mobile bus that would park in the Kmart parking lot. And that was
and that was the
that was the
library.
library, right?
And that surprised me as recent. I mean, I think of it as recent in the late 1970s.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
you helped
Well,
with the foundation, the library foundation?
well, the foundation didn't start till many years later. They had a library group, but they wanted a separate foundation. So that's when I got involved. I was on that board because I've set up so many different things like that. They wanted me to help with that. So they got it started and I probably was on it for a year and a half. And then I felt that my skills weren't really needed that much. I let the library people take over from there.
Mhm.
And I had sort of a special interest because my wife was a librarian. She worked her way through college, worked in Beaverton Library, and
Oh,
then she taught for, oh goodness, 40 some years,
oh, oh.
grade school. So
And the Crawfish Festival, you were involved with that.
oh yes,
And that's over with? There will be.
I
no
hope
more?
not, but I kind of think it is. They've Tigard has resurrected the balloon festival.
Uh-huh.
They stopped it for COVID and some other places have stopped there and they're bringing them back, but I think Tualatin is so diverse right now and people don't have the history of the Crawfish Festival
Mhm.
firmly in mind. And the festival started as just a generator for money for the nonprofits. Originally started the VFW.
Uh-huh.
They sold crawfish out of the Quonset hut. They
Oh.
were there. You
The old
remember the Quonset hut?
VFW,
Yeah,
yeah. And I remember it as a child growing up here. The Crawfish Festival seemed like just a community potluck.
It
you know,
was.
Like maybe 150 people would be there and you knew everybody.
I
And-
remember it when it was maybe a little bit larger than that, but not much. I remember going down, we'd get the crawfish in from Lake Billy Chinook up in Central Oregon, and they'd bring these cages about 3 foot square and 2 foot deep, full of crawfish live. And we'd sit there in the park and we'd clean them. There's 3 parts to the tail, and you take the middle part and you turn it and pull it, and that's the mud vein. And so we cleaned thousands and thousands of crawfish.
Oh,
And then we put them in 5-gallon jugs and fill them with water and take them down to the thriftway store and freeze them in the back room.
huh.
So we do this before the crawfish festival. And yeah, I've cleaned so many crawfish, it's amazing. But
It must have
and
been hard on the hands.
no, well,
The
you get used to
shells.
it, and you get used to how to pick a crawfish up so they don't get you. Because some people would be yelling and throwing them across across the street almost, when they grab onto them. So, yeah, lots of things happen to the crawfish festival that, we had, well, you remember, we had a motorcycle gang in town,
Uh-huh,
Brother Speed,
uh-huh.
right where, I think Avery comes into Tualatin Sherwood Road. There's all those beautiful buildings, but there's a little road that went back to a house, and that was their headquarters.
Oh,
And they were a true biker gang, right there with the worst of them.
Housing.
Brother Speed was the name of it. Brother Speed.
and
but-
didn't they hang out a lot at it was the Spot Tavern?
Spot. It was
Which is
Spot.
now the CI.
Yeah. And when we first moved here, we signed the papers, and then we moved. And I guess it was just at that time is when they had a knife. Somebody killed another guy with a knife in the
Oh,
Spot.
dear.
That changed to the CI, the Country Inn.
They never found
I
the
don't know.
murderer.
I don't know. But Yvonne Addington, one day she was upset with something about him, and she told him, "You do not do bad things in our town, or you'll have the rage of everybody." So they were pretty good around here. They'd come to the crawfish festival and park their bikes on the far corner of the baseball diamond while everything else was going on near the picnic area. And they'd bring their own keg, and they'd have a great time, never bother anybody. One year, one of the Kiwanis or something like that, they had left their refrigerated trailer there overnight the night before, and somebody broke into it and stole hot dogs and hamburgers.
Oh,
And so the guys with the bikers, they said, "Really? Let's see if we can find this." So they went out in the woods and they found the kids that did it and beat them up pretty good, and brought all the stuff back and gave it back to the
Kiwanis.
Kiwanis. Yeah, yeah. It was, you wouldn't have expected it from them. And the only time they may have caused problems, there was one year where it was very hot, and they had a band that was country western. Well, we were supposed to go to 8 o'clock and then turn things off.
Mhm.
Well, at 8 o'clock, they turned the volume up and went to rock and roll and, hard headbanging stuff. And there was a lot of construction workers, because they were building a lot of houses at the time. And there were a few fist fights and such. And so I'm not slapping my own back, but I said, "This has got to stop." And Yvonne was going, "What are we going to do?" And I walked behind the trailer that they had there, and I pulled the plug and rolled up the extension cord and took it away. And there was no sound, and it had to go home.
And you live to tell about it.
I lived to tell about it. Yeah, I just did it as quietly as I possibly could. So,
So
Yeah.
recently you've been, you were involved with the Veterans Memorial.
Right, I'm not a veteran, but the history with my dad's company, I've been involved in it, and I don't think the city's going the right direction right now, but
With the design?
the
of
design,
plan?
yeah. When you get consultants involved, they have their own ideas that may not mix with the what we presented to start with. So it ain't over on that, I don't
Okay.
think, but it can be a wonderful place. The city, I don't know if it's the city or the consultants, they said, well, instead of a Veterans Memorial, we're gonna have it as a Veterans Plaza. And we said, well, what is that? Well, it's a better term than memorial. Well, no, we want a memorial. This is in memory of the people that served. So that's still going around. And then we finally got a flag. They didn't want to put a flag up on their original plan, American flag or anything. So they have one American flag. And our idea was, let's have flags of the Army, Navy, Coast Guard, Marines, Space Force, have those. And with a little something about each one of them, because the people who fought or served, they are either, you know, one of these particular things. They can connect with that. But and then Joe Lipscomb, who I don't know if you know Joe, he's
The name.
he's a ex-Marine from Korea. He's in his late 80s right now, and just as feisty as he was in Korea. He wants something to be said about the women who served. Lots of women. There are no memorials for women in Oregon. There's only like 6 in the country. This would be a perfect thing to bring people in.
There were at least 2 or 3 women from Tualatin who served during World War II.
Yeah.
In the wax or the.
Yeah, and a lot of people, actually, I've talked to a couple of people that work at Commercial Ironworks. They take the bus from Tualatin down to under the Ross Island Bridge, and they work there building ships. So there were a lot of people involved in the war. And then War Dogs, there's no one represents them as a memorial. And there was one other I can't remember right now, but we want to make it all inclusive. And the way they have planned, they could not have the Memorial Day gathering there because it wouldn't hold the people. They have a reflection pool. Well, you've got the lake there. Let that be the reflection pool. But they take up a whole bunch of space on, you know, a reflection pool. And so it ain't over on the planning. I hope it changes a lot between now and then.
You've really been involved in your community.
Yeah, that's just me.
ways.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I'm president of my CIO. I'm a certain member, which is Community Emergency Response Team, as is my wife.
And that's IBAC, the
IBAC CIO. We're trying to rebuild that, but I think it's a good thing. Very good. The certs. I can't count the meetings, surveys, gatherings I've attended in Tualatin over the years. And I wouldn't be doing any of this if it weren't for my wife. She says, go do your thing. She's a lion. She helps me on some things, and some things she sits and reads a book and such, but she and my kids, my daughter lives in Sherwood, my son in Tigard. And we have twin granddaughters that we've watched since birth, because our daughter worked for the state of Oregon and is as an attorney. She was the chief prosecutor for Boley. And then one of the law firms that would represent employers came to her one day and said, "We'd like you to work for us." Well, I don't know. Well, every one of our people have lost to you in court, so we want you on our side. So she's now working for, well, it's a national law firm, but with an office here in Portland. She just loves it, but she's busy.
Yeah.
Our son is busy. He works now, our son-in-law, he works at the pipe and steam fitters labor union. He works there and actually has to go for a week and a half to a conference back in Michigan. He says, "Please, any place but Michigan." He doesn't want to go back. Yeah, I know. Whatever. But our daughters, we've watched them basically since they were about 6 weeks old,
Oh.
and they're at our
That's
house
great.
right now.
Uh-huh.
They're just amazing. One is going into gymnastics, and she's just
Mhm.
they're like this. They're not, you couldn't even tell they're sisters. Well, one's like this and one's here, and she's skinny as a toothpick. She's just tiny,
Uh-huh.
but she can do things in gymnastics
She's the
that,
gymnast.
oh yeah. So I don't think she'll go on from there, but I say, "What are you doing?" She says, "I'm stretching," and her legs are going out like this each way. And I said, "Don't do that until you warm up." And and she'll sit there with one leg up in the air and one down. "I'm just stretching."
Change for success.
Yes. So
Well,
I have a wonderful family, and I've got so many friends here in Tualatin.
oh,
I
I
just
bet
love the
you
place.
must, yeah.
I don't like the traffic anymore.
Mhm.
I just.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but things can change.
that's right.
Things can change, yeah.
That's right.
I'll be banging my hand on the desk
Good,
probably pretty soon. Go to some city council meetings,
good.
such, so.
Well, I can't think of any more questions. Gosh, you've had a busy life.
I
Or
have,
having a busy life. So,
yeah. It's hard keeping track of all the things my calendar is just normally full,
Uh-huh.
more full than when I had my business. I'd go to work, I'd do my thing, and I'd come home, and that was about it. Now I've got meetings and lots of things to do.
Well, to the benefit of your community.
Well, I love Tualatin. Yeah.
Okay.
It's the what did Lou Ogden used to say? The best little city west of the Mississippi or something like that. That was sort of his
I don't
tagline.
remember that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Ed,
Well, you're very
for
welcome.
giving your time and coming here and telling us some of your stories, your experiences. And,
Some of them popped out that I hadn't written down, so.
well, good. Good. So, yeah, so, this will be available. This will be in our archives
Okay,
and available for, people who want to research Tualatin.
okay.
And thank you very much.
Well, you're very welcome.